Welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. It's getting towards that end of the season stage, isn't it? All of a sudden, lots of things are being decided, top and bottom of leagues across Europe. I am your host, Kris, and we have plenty to get through this evening, so I shall waste no time in introducing my partners in crime. They are, as usual, Joel Melwar and John Welsh. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
Evening, Kris.
And just a quick update on Drew. He's still listening. He's still alive. He will return. We promise. We're going to make sure we make a podcast timing to suit him before the end of the season, so we can have a chat to Drew again. And we send him our best as usual. So we have a lot to get through tonight. As usual, our trip around the main 4 leagues of Europe, a bit of best of the rest, a hipster's choice, and a couple of your questions as well. So let's waste no time and crack into our first segment. We're going to start this week in Spain. In Italy, not Spain. Oh, I jumped the gun there. We're going to start in Italy with John. It's this week's Serie. Right, John, we're going to start with the big game on Friday evening, which was, I think, your game of the week last week, and it proved very much to be so. Atalanta hosting Juventus in Bergamo, and it was a thriller, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really, really good game. This was sort of the first in a series of tough games for Juve that was the last test they'd have to see if there was any chance of anyone else pipping them to the league title. And they faced an Atalanta team that's got a ridiculously good home record, and barring the big loss to Inter Milan, got one of the best defensive records in the league, and they put up a really good fight. It ended 2-2. The first half was very kind of bitty, a bit struggling in midfield. Both teams a little bit difficult to keep possession. Juventus had a few half chances, Higuain kind of having some pot shots and spins and shots and things like that, but most of them going wide or easy saves for Berisha. But it was really Atalanta's work rate and Papu Gomez, who in this game was actually leading the line, the small man, the captain for Atalanta. He had Kurtic and Hurtber either side of him, who they weren't really sort of inside forwards. They were more the strikers, and Gomez would drop in behind, and Juventus were really having trouble picking him up. And he was causing all the issues, and it was him who created the first goal for Conti, who has been really good from that right wing-back role all season, getting in at the back post. Gomez tried to create a chance for Frula, but it didn't come off, and he managed to get back on the ball and pick out a really, really nice cross that just evaded Bonucci and Chiellini, and Conti coming in at the back post. Juve came back into it, immediate response, really good ball in from a free kick for Pjanic, and at first it looked like Bonucci had headed it, but it was actually former Juve man Spinazzola who scored for an own goal. And it stayed at 1-1 for quite a while. Juve pressing a little bit, Atalanta soaking up pressure, going forwards when they could. Papu Gomez causing lots of problems, finding space, producing from really good saves from Buffon as well from some of his shooting. Dani Alves scored a late goal, 83rd minute. Pjanic again picking him out. At this point he'd been moved further upfield into the sort of Cuadrado role to give him a bit more freedom. And kind of like he did, I guess, at Barcelona, where he was coming in from that wide angle and attacking the back stick. Really, really good header. And you thought Juve had won it all from that point. But right at the end, Atalanta, they've got this kind of philosophy, well, if we're losing, then we throw everything forward because there's nothing to gain from just sitting back and trying to scrap just hold it out 2-1. So they threw everyone forward. They got a fortunate break with the ball. Pjanic and Lichtsteiner getting confused between each other, not clearing the ball properly. It broke to Fruli 2 times, and he just managed to scramble the ball in and get an equaliser. But they were really, really good at Atalanta. Definitely worth the draw. Juve should have had a penalty for a deliberate handball from, I think it was Masalo, but Mandzukic was called offside. He was offside, but the handball incident happened before the ball had reached him, so they should have had a penalty, but I think Atalanta were definitely worth the draw. And yeah, it could have been a very bad weekend for Juventus had other results gone differently, because gaps could have been closed and that kind of thing, and with the Champions League coming up, there's extra pressure added, obviously. Another good result for Atalanta, looking more and more likely that they're going to have European football next season. I'm just worried about what players will be there come after the summer, because obviously, Gomez, Mattia Caldara's got one more season until he goes to Juventus. Berisha is a good goalkeeper who could go somewhere. Kurtic is a very good player. But Gasperini should definitely be in the talking for manager of the season, because he's done amazing things there.
Yeah, it really has done quite the job. It was a very entertaining game, I must admit. I didn't think Atalanta would come back once Juve got that late goal. I thought that would be that. So they showed some real resolve to get a point out of that game. But you mentioned, of course, that result could have had an influence, particularly if Roma could win the Rome derby at the top of Serie A. They faced Lazio at home. The small problem is they didn't win it. In fact, they didn't even get a point from it. They lost 3-1 to their Rome rivals. Would it be fair to say this was a slightly fortuitous victory for Lazio, given the overall play in the game? And we must talk about that dive as well.
No, I actually thought Lazio were the better team. They came into it and under difficult circumstances, because their top goal scorer of the season, Ciro Immobile, had flu, and in the warm-up basically ruled himself out because he was just in a state and couldn't play. So that changed the lineup, not long before kick-off, and just didn't seem to affect him. And Inzaghi's done an amazing job there. They soaked up the pressure and they broke on Roma superbly, exploited their weaknesses at the back, how open they can be, how exposed they are at times, the lack of fullbacks in the team at the moment in particular. You've got Rudiger, who's a very good player, but he's playing at right back. Emerson, who is very good going forwards, but questionable in defence, you'd say. And they just outplayed Roma. First goal coming from Keita, who's just been in great form the last couple of games. He basically played as the forward in place of Immobile in this game, and was really, really good. Every time they needed a ball out, he was willing, running into space, dragging players with him, and he just got the ball on the edge of the box, and Fazio and Emerson just stood off him, just gave him too much room. He managed to turn. Fazio got inside. Emerson went to block the shot. He got the shot between his legs, and Szczesny couldn't get down in time to save it. He did get his hand to it, so maybe he could have done a little bit better, but they just didn't close the space out at all. And then Lazio did what they did, just shut up shop, went back deep again, tried to exploit on the counter. Roma did get a penalty. Lots of been talk about dives and stuff this weekend across Europe, particularly in the Premier League. Marcus Rashford, and there was arguments over whether Harry Kane's penalty was a penalty or not, which I thought was ridiculous. Even being an Arsenal fan, that was the only one that was a penalty. But if you thought the Rashford dive and some of the others were bad, then yeah, just check out what Kevin Strootman does. Wallace swings a leg out, realises he's not getting the ball, immediately retracts his foot, doesn't touch. I mean, he's not even close to touching Kevin Strootman. He's probably a half a foot away from him. Strootman jumps up in the air like he's been shot, just straight vertical, and just collapses. How the referee and the assistant behind the goal doesn't see that it's a complete and utter dive, I have no idea. Lucas Biglio got booked for protesting. De Rossi stepped up, took the penalty. It wasn't the best, but he scored. And Roma got a goal back, and they didn't really deserve it, to be honest. But it didn't seem to faze Lazio. They pushed on in the game, and Duvan Basta, who's a player who I certainly wish was a few years younger, because I'd love him at Arsenal. He's really, really good, adventurous fullback and great defensively. Just got forwards and chested it down the edge of the box, took a shot, lucky deflection, diverted it off of Fazio into the goal, and Lazio retook the lead, and then again did the same thing. Soaked up the pressure. Roma couldn't break them down. They were getting frustrated. There was niggly fouls going everywhere. And then right at the end of the game, again, Lazio broke on them. Lulic, who had a really, really good game, got down the left-hand side. 2-on-2, squared it across to Keita, who buried it for 3-1. So really, really solid performance. I think it's the first time Lazio have won the derby in the league in about 4 years. So very impressive from them. At the end of the game, after the third goal, must have said also Rudiger got sent off straight red card. Really, really bad challenge. Just basically a flying straight kick into Djordjevic. Awful challenge. So he's going to miss some big games towards the end of the season now. And Roma have done the typical Roma thing of comes to the end of the season, they've got a chance to do something impressive and they shoot themselves in the foot. Lazio, meanwhile, dodged a bullet, didn't get Bielsa, took Inzaghi back, and he's made this team really tick, got them to a cup final, and there's a chance, it's a slim chance, but there is a chance that they could even maybe get Champions League football. They'll certainly be in Europe next season by the looks of it, but there's still a slim chance they could get Champions League, which would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, caps off a very good season for them, doesn't it? And like you say, on the day it was quite the entertaining affair, and in the end, Lazio running out comfortable winners. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how their season ends. And exactly what you said there, Roma doing a Roma, unfortunately. So that's the end of that. Just quickly, do you think we'll see Totti in a Roma shirt again in a Rome derby? There's a lot of speculation about whether he'll be around or not.
Well, yeah, this is the big thing at the moment. He said it's not his last game for Roma. Kind of the way he worded it was sort of like as if the club haven't made their mind up yet. The managing director has said, Totti is a director from next season for 6 years. He's already got that contract, that's done. So he'll be here for all the games, but they weren't really clear on whether he's going to play or not. Personally, I think it's probably best for Totti to call it quits this season. He did come on in this game, but he couldn't affect it. He was only on for sort of 20 minutes at the end. But he clearly still wants to play, so we shall see. I think his pull at Roma is big enough that he could probably have a director-player contract or something like that. Yeah,
would be interesting to see if he does stick around, because he's just still a legend, isn't he? Even at the age he's at. So
yeah, the other big thing with Roma is obviously Monchi was all made official this week, so he is the new sporting director at Roma. So one of his first jobs, possibly, if Spalletti keeps his word and says, if Roma don't win anything, which basically I can't see them winning the league now, it would take a miracle. He'll be walking away, so his first job will be getting a new manager in.
Yes, who might be coming from France, maybe. But more on that later. Yeah, good results nevertheless for Lazio, and we all hope Totti plays on, of course, because it's Totti. Speaking of playing on, that brings us to Crotone, who we kind of said a few weeks ago they were probably going to be doomed along with Pescara and Palermo, but they're living on, aren't they? They're kind of doing all they can to stick around in this league. Another decent point, this time at home, to AC Milan. Would you say they'd be disappointed that they didn't get all three, or will they take this as another point closer to the opportunity of safety, even though it still looks a bit of a remote possibility?
I actually think they'll be disappointed they didn't win the game. They had a goal wrongly disallowed for offside in this, which is disappointing. They just flew out the block straight away, forcing Donnarumma to make saves from the first minute. Falcinelli in particular was very, very good in this. A guy who some fans may remember, some Fulham fans may remember, Trotter up front.
Marcello Trotter, yeah.
Yeah, he used to play for Fulham and apparently Brentford as well, which I did not know. Yeah, he got the opener on 8 minutes. Just a really good finish, and him and Falcinelli up front caused Milan lots and lots of problems. Fair enough, Milan have got defensive issues at the minute and they've got players missing, but they really, really pushed Crotone and they were very impressive, and it's a shame really that they've left it this late to kind of make a challenge. Milan got the goal back and it was a very scrappy, I think it took about I must have watched the replay 5 or 6 times to work out who actually scored the goal. It was Paletta in the end. It was just a crossing and very scrappy. And I thought, 1 minute maybe it's a goal off the keeper Cordaz, and maybe it's off Ferrari. You couldn't really make clear, but in the end it was Paletta who got the last touch. That was in the second half. But yeah, Crotone will be disappointed. The second goal should have stood. Trotta had a really good chance at the end as well, which forced Donnarumma into an excellent save. And to be honest, their performance was probably worthy of the 3 points. The fact that Empoli have obviously were on that slide, but then got 2 good results, gives them that little glimmer of hope. And Genoa as well are really struggling at the moment. So if they stay up, it's going to be amazing, because I'd certainly written them off earlier in the season. As for Milan, just struggling at the back at the moment. Not having the players available, too many injuries, and just lacking that depth in the squad. Also wasn't helped by Kuchka getting a quite early booking. That he did get sent off, but that was late on into injury time, which is a big blow for them because he'll miss the game against Roma coming up. But yeah, they were lacking a little bit of firepower up front. Lapadula wasn't really doing it. Deulofeu, was probably their best outlet yet again. So they're really hoping they can keep hold of him come the summertime.
Yeah, it's going to be a key signing if they can keep hold of him, that's for sure. But nevertheless, more drop points for Milan, and I can run us quickly through the other results as well before we have a look at the table. So what else did we have here? Well, a result for Torino, Sampdoria, that was a 1-1 draw. Is that a derby or not? It's not, is it?
No.
No, okay. I don't know why I thought it was. Get confused. But another goal for your mate Patrick Schick before he went off injured in that one.
Yes, very good goal. His agent is scrambling to try and get him to sign a new deal with Samp so they can get a bigger release clause and he can make more money.
Not surprised, yeah. And Juan Manuel Iturbe with the equaliser for Torino, the forgotten man. Genoa, we wanted to touch on them quickly in a second, which we will. They lost at home to Chievo by 2-1. Panda for Genoa. Yes, Goran Panda, he's still around. Bastien and Volta Bersha with the winning goal there. For Chievo, who also had De Pauli sent off in stoppage time. Palermo winning a game, just when it's too late, probably. Diamante and Alessami with the goals there. Davide Astore sent off for Fiorentina, 2-0 victory. Also on the Sunday games, Cagliari beating Pescara by goals to nil. Ciao Padro with the winning penalty. Empoli losing at home to Sassuolo. Peluso, Matri and Duncan with the goals for Sass. Pucciarelli with a goal back for Empoli. Bologna also beating Udinese 4-0. Destro again, and Danilo on goal for Bologna. And of course Inter lost because that's what they do at home to Napoli. Jose Callahan with the goal. Just two quick questions there before you can run us through the table. We mentioned Genoa a little earlier on there, losing at home to Chievo. They're sliding, aren't they? Really sliding down that table. Is there any danger that there's enough time for them to slide even further down?
Yeah, there really is. They haven't got a pleasant running. Ivan Juric was in tears in the press conference after the game, and in this game they threw it away. Before they were 1-0 up, they had a penalty, which they didn't score from as well. So they really, really did throw this game away, and their form has been absolutely awful. Obviously, Juric was sacked previously and then brought back in, and it's just not working. And I don't think they've won at home in something like 9 games now. They've got Palermo, who are obviously fighting for their lives, coming up. Sorry, not Palermo coming up. They've got Inter first, then Palermo, which are 2 really tough games. They've got Torino, who obviously everyone knows what a goal threat they are, and their last game of the season is away to Roma. So they're not easy matches, and there's a real danger if Crotone can keep their form up that maybe Genoa might get pulled in there. Their only hope is that Empoli are perhaps doing a bit worse than them, so it's not looking good for them. The other quick thing I just wanted to mention was obviously Pescara were relegated after we finished recording last week officially, so they are gone. I mean everyone knew that anyway, but sad scenes at their game at the weekend. Salimentari was racially abused by a fan in the crowd. He went over at half time to try and talk to the fan and explain, this is not acceptable. That fan was sat next to father and son, and he took his shirt off and gave it to the son tried to explain to the son, like, this is not the behaviour to have. Came back out second half, it continued. He complained to the referee, who hadn't done anything at that point, and actually got booked for complaining to the referee, and walked off the pitch and left Pescara with 10 men. Zdeněk Zeman came out and completely defended Montari's actions, so disappointing to still see that kind of thing in football.
Yeah, what a mess indeed. The other question I was going to ask you was about Inter, but I'm going to save it because we've just this second had a question come in about that very subject, so I'll save that one for later. Do you want to run us through the table then and where we are this week?
Yeah, so Roma couldn't capitalise, so Juve actually extended the gap despite only getting a draw there on 84 points. Roma in second on 75. Napoli now just a point behind, so if they can overtake Roma, they get the automatic Champions League spot, which they really do want because their history in qualifying in Champions League is awful. Lazio up to 67 points now, so it's going to be tough, but there's a chance of them maybe creeping into Champions League. Atalanta in 5th place on 64, 6th place Milan 59, behind them Inter on 56, Fiorentina on 55, Torino 49, Samp make out the top 10 on 46. Then you've got Udinese safe in 11th spot, 43 points. Chievo 41. Calgary, fantastic, come up from Serie B, 13th place, mid-table, 41 points. No danger of them going down, well done to them. Sassuolo, 39 points. Bologna 38, now safe. Genoa, this is where it gets tight, 30 points in 16th. Empoli, 29 points in 17th. Crotone, 18th, the first relegation spot on 25 points. So just the 5 points between those three teams. Palermo technically not out of it on 19 points, but yeah, they're gone basically.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with gone on Palermo. What's the game to have a look out for next week?
So next week there's 2 games, both quarter-to-8 games. Saturday nights you've got the Turin derby, Juventus host Torino, always very good to fare that one. And then on Sunday night, Milan host Roma.
Ooh, two biggies. That'll be all Italian eyes this weekend. And of course, Juventus Monaco in midweek as well. Mm-hmm. I trust you'll be watching that.
Yes.
Fairly confident that Juve can stunt the free-flowing Monaco?
I hate being confident for Juventus because then they always mess up. But yeah, I just think that I'm not sure what Monaco will do when it's sort of 20 minutes in and they go, oh, I don't know how to get past this defence, and they get a little bit confused. Just the experience difference and the age and just the know-how on the pitch, I think will tell over the 2 legs. But there's no doubt that Monaco have got a chance because they are brilliant going forwards. But I just think Juve are going to have a little bit too much.
Fair enough. Yeah, good of Monaco to throw the Cup semi-final last weekend against PSG as well, resting their players. But we shall see. Okay, good. As usual, if you've got questions for John on Italian football, then ping them our way, and we'll do our best to get them answered. I know there is definitely one this week, so we'll be back to that later. But now we're going to nip off to Spain and hear what's been happening in this week's La Liga. Right, Joel, let's start. I think we're going to start down at the bottom, aren't we? Because it's a bit of a close run thing. We know that Osasuna have gone. We're fairly confident that Granada are going to go. But that other space is very much, could have been very much up for grabs if Sporting Gijon could have got a result this weekend at Villarreal. They couldn't, could they? And I guess I will be interested to hear what you think. But does that kind of put the nail in their coffin now?
Now 6 points with 3 games left. It's going to take hell of a turnaround for them. You've got to look at that again on the back of they're not in great form either. So even if they are to win the last 3 games, it's going to be pretty unlikely off the back of the form recently. They went into the game on Friday night off the back of a draw at home to Espanyol, which wasn't quite good enough, not what they needed. And they were completely dominated by Villarreal. They could have took the lead really early through Soriano, had a shot cleared off the line. It was a really poor miss. Gijon did have a chance through Moy Gomez, who's ex-Villarreal, but he hit the crossbar. But then from that period onwards, it was just Villarreal kind of completely dominating. It was really good to see Roberto Soldado back for Villarreal. Had a really bad injury. I think he did his cruciate. He's out for 8 to 9 months, but he's back now. And he links up really well. See, Villarreal play the 4-4-2. They're kind of a mini Atletico Madrid, I always think. They play a 4-4-2, quite rigid. And they play Bakambu with another, and that another was Soldado. Really good interplay between them, and they went 1-0 ahead. And then, again, I seem to say this repeatedly when you're talking about football, got to half-time 1-0. You think Gijon can just hang in the game until maybe 6-70 minutes and maybe push. and they conceded straight after the breakthrough by Campbell with really, really poor defending. A great ball by Jonathan Dos Santos, but just really poor. Soldado then missed an open goal. Kind of sums up his last probably 5 years of his career. But he did get the third with good build-up. It was good play between Soldado and Bakambu. Gijon kind of gambled at that point, had nothing to lose, and scored through Douglas. But you just feel like they've just the ship sailed for them. There's been a lot of criticism of Ruby, the coach. Seems to make a lot of changes which appear unnecessary, and he kind of got it wrong in midweek. I felt against Espanyol, we're playing three at the back, and he kind of did the same at the weekend as well. And they have got some good players, Bergi, Moy Gomez, Duque Kopp. They are good players, but I don't know. It looks unlikely that they're going to stay up now. And obviously the change of manager, they got rid of Abelardo midway through the season and brought in Ruby, hasn't really worked. Ruby was the manager of Levante and got them relegated. So he's had a really poor couple of seasons as well, albeit he's had half a season probably at both clubs. But they look like they've gone. And with Villarreal, it's decent for them. They kind of just need to make that transition into regularly getting the Champions League. And they were really unlucky. I think they played Monaco, didn't they, in the qualifier this year for the Champions League. Is that right?
I think it is, yes. We might have to. John's our man for that. You'll have to check that
I
one
shall
out.
double check.
Thank you.
So I think they played Monaco, which is really lucky when you get into that qualifier slot, into the fourth slot of, if you're in Spain or England, you get that qualifying slot. And then you have to play a qualifier in it. And if you draw Monaco, it's really unfortunate. Obviously, the change of manager before the start of the season. And the 5 points off Sevilla now, but Sevilla have a game in hand, which is tonight against Malaga away. So they're just a little bit short of Champions League. They'll definitely, you would think, make the Europa League, which is decent for them. But I just feel like they can make the transition. But they are a relatively small club, Villarreal. I think, getting crowds of 15,000 is not going to bring in huge amount of revenue. So for Villarreal, I think they just need a season of stability now until the end of the season. Escobar has done really well. It was a surprise appointment, but I think he's done well. But it's just to see if they can push on next season. It's going to get harder in that top four. I think Sevilla have a good go at it again. And I think Bilbao will do well next season. So it's going to be hard for Villarreal, but it was a decent performance. And just really was comfortable throughout.
Yeah, agreed. And it was Monaco, by the way. John's just double checked. So good job we got him, really, isn't it? Good job.
Really.
I suppose the other result, we can quickly touch on it now. The fact Leganes lost to Eibar is the only thing that keeps Gijon just in with a chance. But like you say, the idea of them winning one of their, or three of the last, the last three games they've got to play. So the idea of that is. You
haven't won in 7, so they're going to have to do something miraculous. And they've only won 5 all season, so you kind of get into that point now where it's almost impossible. But plenty of things have happened, but they've got a dreadful goal difference of minus 32, conceded 70, so it's not looking good.
70 goals against. Wow. That's not good. Is it the bottom three? 84, 74 and 70 against. Wow. That's quite a lot of goals. Speaking of a lot of goals, that was seamless, wasn't it? Las Palmas. I think it's safe to say they've got their flip-flops on and they are very much newspaper in hand, towel on beach, foot in water. They are very much done for the season, aren't they? And it showed in their home performance against Atletico Madrid, who scored more than one for a change.
They did. I know you're not a fan of their defensive style, Kris, but
I'm sorry.
They did. They got 5 at the week and they beat Las Palmas 5-0 away. There was 3-0 up. Goals through Gamiro after 2 minutes. Saul with a header made it 2-0, and then Gamiro made it 3-0 on the 20th minute mark. That was the first time Atletico Madrid have scored 3 goals within the opening 20 minutes since 1957. So quite an unusual feat for Atletico Madrid, but they just dominated the game against Las Palmas. Las Palmas, just since Quique Setién said he's leaving, have just gone into freefall. It's 7 games since he said he was leaving. They've lost 5, and of those 5 have been by more than 3 goals. So they're in a real poor situation. You can kind of see why Quique Setién said he's going, although they were doing better when he said he was staying. Not said he was staying, when he was the manager, sorry. But I don't know. I think maybe if they hit the ceiling, but the players have really kind of took the foot off the gas and are just kind of cruising through the season. Like you say, kind of on the beach, that feeling, that phrase that goes around that the players have just knocked off. I think they have. They have decent amount of possession in this game, but that's because, I'm going to say this time and time again, Atletico Madrid, they allow that to happen. Even when they're winning 3-0 away at Las Palmas and they could go on and get, 5, 6, 7, 8, they will just drop off and just soak up the pressure. Did that at the weekend, although they did end up going on to score 5. It was interesting that they just kind of let up and let Las Palmas have the ball. I think that was with Tuesday night in mind, which we'll come on to. Gamiro could have scored a hat-trick. He hit the post. He looked really sharp. It was his first start for a couple of months. And I think he might have just played himself into contention for the game on Tuesday night, although Carrasco is reportedly going to be fit. So he may go with Griezmann and Carrasco just for pure pace, although Gamiro is fast, just for pure pace on the counter at the Bernabeu. Angel Carrera came on in the 72nd minute, and he linked up really well with Thomas Partey, a player who's got a bit more football recently, as Simeone has chosen to rotate, and he scored the 4th. And then it was good to see Torres come on and get the 5th, finishing a nice move and a Philippe Luis cross in stoppage time. So really great performance from Atletico Madrid, perfect for what they need. I keep saying week on week, they have come into a really good spell of form at a great time. Too late for La Liga, although I think they could have pushed La Liga if they'd just played better earlier on, because I just feel that Real Madrid and Barca have not been vintage this season. They've just been a little bit off that. But they're in a really good place for the Champions League now. Although they've got a little bit of a problem for Tuesday next, they haven't got a natural right back. And Jimenez went off injured. So the natural plan would be to put Savic at right back and to play Jimenez in the middle, but he picked up an injury as well. So they may play Lucas Hernandez and Godin, but Godin apparently is carrying a knock as well. So they're a little bit walking wounded at the minute. No right back with Rosalco and Juanfran both injured. So slightly patched up at the back, but they'll be really strong going forward, and they'll definitely have a plan for Tuesday night's game. For Las Palmas after this, I don't know where they go. I think they just see the season out. I saw Paco Gemes, the ex-Vallecano manager, has been linked with Vallecano and Granada manager, who's only there for a brief period to start this season, has been linked with the Las Palmas job. He would suit their style of play. They play lovely football. It just I don't know. They get to a point and they're just blown up. But start of the season, midway through the season, they're one of the best teams to watch. It's just gone a little bit wrong. It seems to have tried to evolve the team through, signing Hesse and Halovic. It's just derailed them somewhat, and maybe they should have just stuck to what they had, and that maybe served them a little bit better. I also saw that Kevin Prince Boateng is linked with a move away, and Kike Setien is linked to Valencia, and there could be that two would link up again at Valencia. He does appear to be the favourite for the Valencia job now. I think we called that some weeks ago on here, that it'd maybe be a good fit when he announced he was leaving. We did say Valencia was the first job for him. That's available, and is a club to probably take the next step up. So it'd be interesting to see if that does come off, but that would be a good move for him. But all systems go for Atletico Madrid, and obviously looking forward to Tuesday night.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we'll get a quick overview of that one in a second. Before we do, we will just touch on the Sunday game, which was Bilbao playing away from home against Celta Vigo, who, of course, we know have got Manchester United on Thursday night in the Europa League. A 3-0 home defeat to Bilbao on the night. Was that pretty much concrete evidence, if ever you needed it, that their minds are elsewhere this weekend?
Yeah, I said this last week. They've gone to the extreme of resting for the Europa League. Started to rest players kind of 3 weeks ago, and they've carried it on. And obviously they were going to do it yesterday. They made 8 changes again, completely rotated. Players who've played such low amount of minutes were playing. They just aren't interested in La Liga. The complete focus is on Thursday night in the tie against United. I can understand it. It just isn't the greatest thing to see. I think Sevilla did it under Unai Emery when they beat Liverpool, which would have been last season. They really took a gamble and focused on the Europa League. I think for Celta Vigo, can they beat United? Well, I think they can. It's an outside chance, so I can see why he wants all of his players fit and fresh. They were not at the races yesterday, and the class was such a kind of divide. Raul Garcia got 2. One just before half time, and then a second just after half time to double the lead. And then Mikel Rico, a player I do rate, scored in the final 10 minutes to put them back in the top 6. But the game kind of highlighted how good Inaki Williams is now becoming for me. Again, obviously against a Celta second string, it's hard to judge, but consistently now he's starting to get kind of good performances in. That blistering pace is just always there, and he's starting to get an end product now. Got an assist last night. I really kind of think there's a big future for him. Whether he stays at Bilbao, I don't know, but I think he could definitely look to move into a top tier club in Europe. I think if Man City hadn't got Sané, I think that would have been a good fit for him. Because he would suit Guardiola's style of play, but I just think there's a real player in there. For Celta Vigo, obviously all focus on Thursday. Can they do it? I think they've got a good chance against United, particularly at home. I feel they'll need to take a lead back to Old Trafford, though, because they are really good at home, Celta. They've obviously, like I said last week, they beat Barcelona at home and they've beat Real Madrid at home in the Copa del Rey, but away they've had kind of real tonkin. So I think it is a situation they've got to get something at home. Aspas will be a threat, as will Guidetti. I did see kind of a bit of a Mickey take tweet about, well, Celta Vigo can't be much because they've got Aspas and Guidetti, two strikers who failed completely in the Prem. They are different strikers to what they were when they were at Man City and Liverpool, respectively. They do look a different threat, and Aspas has been one of the players of the season in the league. He's got, I think, upwards of 20 goals, so he will be a threat. I just hope they can do something against United. It'll be a shame if they get well beaten on Thursday, then beaten at Old Trafford, and you think, well, you've given up probably 5 or 6 weeks of the season for this. To not get anything would be a real shame. But it's a gamble they've taken, and they'll finish mid-table in the league comfortably. For Bilbao, they're well in within the top 6 now, and I think with them and Villarreal, they'll get 5th and 6th. Again, they just need to make the step up to the Champions League and get that 4th spot, but that's difficult, and we've discussed that in terms of the resources that they've got available to them.
Great, yes, and good points. Were you remotely bothered, sort of as a La Liga fan, as a fan of Spanish football, some of the press that Vigo got? A lot of people said, "Oh, this is the draw Man United would have wanted." Yeah. They're not all that. They're a poor side, etc. Is that just lazy British journalism, or how do you sort of see it from that perspective?
I think, like, if we're brutally honest, it was a draw that United wanted. Even Celta Vigo, as I see Celta Vigo, are a top 8 Spanish team. It's not going to be a stroll in the park, but I think their starting 11 that will start on Thursday night, which is probably their best team, obviously, I think the total transfer fees are around 23 million compared to United, which is probably going to be about, 350 million when they take the pitch. So there's a massive gulf, and United would have wanted the draw against Celta Vigo, but I think people are completely underestimating them as a team, and I'm probably having one glance at the table and seeing that they're now 11th and they'll be a draw in the park, and they're not taking into consideration that when they've played Barcelona and they've played Real Madrid at home, they've given them a really good game and they've beaten them. They play a high intensity game. They'll be all over United. They won't let them play out from the back. So I think it is complete lazy journalism. I think there's this element that La Liga is weak throughout the league. And granted, some of the teams at the bottom are poor, but I think it's improving as a league. And I think the mid-table teams have massively improved. And that maybe is a reason why Real Madrid and Barcelona have not run away with it as much as they've done in previous years. But I think Celta Vigo will give United a game, especially at home. I just worry that if they get a draw on Thursday and go to Old Trafford, then they'll be beaten over 2 legs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they need to take something from that Spanish leg, and Anderlecht prove that anyone can give Man United a game if they're in the tie second leg. So that will be interesting to see how that develops. Okay, just before we come on to the Madrid derby, I'll just run through the other results. We're not going to go back through the whole of the midweek results, but we will just tell you that Barcelona and Real Madrid both won, so they kept pace with each other. Goal fest as well, 6 for Madrid and La Coruña, and 7 for Barca over Osasuna. But the other results for the weekend's games: Sociedad beating Granada 2-1. Carlos Vela and Juanmi with the winner after Ramos had levelled for Tony Adams' Granada, who of course fought a defeat again. Real Madrid kept up their wins that they need to keep up with a late Marcelo winner after Ronaldo had put them in front of Valencia, only for Dani Parejo to level with 8 minutes to go. Marcelo's winner coming 4 minutes from time. Espanyol losing at home to Barca. I did watch this one actually on Saturday night. Barca, not great first half, but second half kind of took over and capitalised on some poor defensive errors. 2 goals for Luis Suarez and 1 for Ivan Rakitic in that one. And then on the Sunday games, Osasuna 2-2 draw with Deportivo La Coruña, largely largely pointless is a bit harsh, but it's not going to make any effect on their relegation. And Mondragon putting them in front. Guillem, 2 goals for Deportivo before Juanfran equalising through his own net in 78th minute for Osasuna. Betis 1, Deportivo Alaves 4. Cracking result that for Alaves. Kristicic, who I'm sure used to play for Sampdoria. I'm sure John will tell me if I'm wrong. Rubens, Sobrino, Santos and Katai with the goals for Alaves after Ruben Pardo had actually put Betis in front. And Eibar, as you mentioned briefly earlier on, beating Leganes, continue their fantastic season. 2-0 in that one. Goals for Eibar coming from Kike and Sergi Enric. Do you want to just run us through the table, and then we'll just have a quick chat about this Madrid derby?
Yeah, so starting from the top, Barcelona first, 81 points. Madrid second, 81 points. Madrid have the game in hand. Atletico in third with 71. Sevilla in fourth with 68. Villarreal fifth, 63. Bilbao 6, 62. Sociedad in 7, 61 points. Eibar, great season for them, 8th with 54 points. Espanyol 9th with 50 points. Alaves 10th with 48 points. Celta Vigo 11th, 44 points. Valencia down in 12th with 40 points. Malaga 13th with 39 points. Las Palmas also on 39 points, but in 14th. Betis in 15th on 37 points, and a bit of a gap. Deportivo 16th on 32 points. Leganés on 30 points in 17th, and then the bottom three is made up of Gijon on 18th on 24 points. Granada 19th and 20 points, and Osasuna 20th with 19 points.
It's all getting close at the top, certainly, but they just keep winning, those two. And of course, the two Madrid clubs meet on, is it Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday. Or is it Tuesday? One of the days this week.
It's Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday, thank you. So, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. So, simple question then for you, Joel. Who wins it in the first leg alone? And what's the keys for both sides? Because I imagine Atletico, we know what we're going to get from them. And are Real Madrid just going to look to try and outscore their Madrid opponents?
Yeah, I think it will be a draw tomorrow night. I think I'm basing that off the fact that Atletico Madrid have got now something over Real Madrid and have been probably over the last 2 or 3 years done better in the derby games. Keys for both teams, well, Real Madrid is just the kind of individual brilliance that they've got in the forward positions. There's a current theme of Real Madrid that they don't particularly play well, and the weekend proved that again. They allow teams the opportunity to have chances, and the better teams will take them, and they don't particularly function well, but they just win and they get over the line. And that is because of the individual brilliance that they've got. So, the front three alone, and Isco's done well, and James has even come back into the team. So I think they'll rely on that. For Atletico Madrid, it will be very much the team effort. Look to counter-attack for Griezmann and Carrasco if he's fit. Look to stay in the game at the Bernabeu. Look to give absolutely nothing away and take them back for the home leg and hopefully get something at home. I think it won't be the best to watch because the games never are. And I think it will be a complete contrast probably to the Juventus Monaco game, which we'll see a little bit more attacking threat through Monaco than we'll probably see on Tuesday night, because it just generally tense affairs with not much happening. I suspect Madrid will have a lot of the ball, but I don't think that'll bother Atletico Madrid too much at all. I do fancy Atletico Madrid over 2 legs. I've been saying this for a few weeks. I do fancy them for the Champions League this year. They've just come into form at the right time. I think with Griezmann, they've always got the opportunity to score now, and I think that's just crucial for them.
It's going to end up in a Monaco Atletico final, isn't it? Juventus Atletico Madrid final, where it's just going to go all the way to penalties. It'll be 0-0, and it'll be like 17-18 on penalties. Or
Perfect game of football, that is, mate.
I know you love it. Interesting. Either that, or it'll end up Real Madrid against Monaco, and it'll just be 14-all after extra time. One of the two. Just can't tell. Good stuff. Okay, what's the game you want to have a look out for next week for us, Sanjo?
So there's a couple I'd like to pick out. So Barca Villarreal on Saturday at 5:30 English time is a decent game. And then also just on Tony Adams' watch, we've got Granada at home to Real Madrid at 7:45 on Saturday.
Jesus, it doesn't get any easier for Big Tone, does it? Jesus.
I did see a really good press conference in this week, and he spoke about the organisation behind the club and what he's trying to do and the structural changes. And he's gaining credibility in Spain through what he's doing and what he's saying. I think he's come into a situation where it's just a mess, and he's making positive waves in terms of restructuring the club, and it's been welcomed by the Granada fans. So the results are not completely not right on the pitch, but I think off the pitch he's kind of getting it right in what he's at least trying to do. But it was quite an easy job because it was just to restore some identity to Granada because they just lost it so much. So he's got the fans on side at the minute, which is a really positive thing for him.
Yeah, so like we said last week, isn't it? It's a long-term project for the short-term pain potentially. So, yeah, we shall see how that comes to pass. As usual, if you've got any questions on Spain, please do give Joel a tweet or ourselves, and we'll get them answered as best we can. I think we've got a couple today as well, so we'll come back to those. But it's off to France next, and we'll find out about a very close title race and an even closer relegation race. It's this week's Liga.
We'll start Liga this week with the bad boys of French football, Kris. Bastia, everyone's favourite, getting a much-needed win down at the bottom of the table. Surprise, to be honest, against Rennes.
Yeah, it was. Was it a surprise or not? I suppose it's one of those that's hard to judge because Rennes are just so up and down. They're a little bit like Lille. You just never know what you're going to get. But it was a huge result for Bastia. Just when we said last week that it would probably be best for all parties if they were to go to Ligue 2, they all of a sudden have found 2 wins in their last 3 games. That said, it has to be the caveat has to be, of course, we don't know what's going to happen with this Lyon situation. There's still widely reported that they're going to be docked 3 points and the result will go to Lyon. Now, if that happens, I think that's them effectively doomed. But with this result over Rennes, goal from Crivelli after some lovely work down the touchline from Alain Saint-Maximin, who's probably a player. Well, he is definitely a player way better than the club he's performing for. I think it's one of those results. You look at it, you just say if they can somehow manage to pull out a couple more results from these last couple of fixtures. If they don't get a points deduction, they might still have a chance of surviving. But I just think it's going to be a bridge too far. Technically, that they would have a game in hand, which would be the Lyon game. But unless it gets replayed, which I really don't think is going to happen, they are doomed. I don't know if you saw the pictures from this game, but it was played behind closed doors. It's always an eerie kind of ground when you see a game play like that. It did seem to affect the players from both sides for long periods, but ultimately it is a win for Bastia. Their goal difference is close enough that if they could get within, for example, Caen, who are 9 or 8 goals worse off, if they don't get this points deduction, there is life. But I still think they're doomed. And sorry, Bastia fans, I still think it'd be better for the league if they do remain doomed, because they're not exactly the most friendly club to everybody else in the league right now. So I think they're probably still going to go down, but almost as a waving of the white flag, they've gone down with a fight this weekend.
Well, decent result for them. Also down at the bottom, struggling, who definitely do need a result, was Caen, and they hosted Marseille, who on their travels this season haven't been the best, but they were in this game, and a certain Florian Thauvin, Newcastle fans will be scratching their heads saying, where was this player for them?
Yeah, he's a classic example of a player who's just fits a club and fits a league. You see it across Europe in so many different players. Where the best example I'd give you is Anthony Modeste at Cologne at the moment. Some players just fit clubs and they just find their feet and it works. And Thauvin at Newcastle was a horrible experiment which didn't work. He never settled in the northeast, never settled into English football, and he's thriving under Marseille. And it has to be said, I wanted to pick out Marseille this week because they're a club that a lot of people forget. They are the biggest club in France. Obviously, people talk about PSG and all their money and the Monaco project, which is fantastic. But Marseille is still the biggest club in France. And a manager who, of course, you'll know well from last season, John Rudy Garcia, who, he came in under not under a cloud as such, but I think people looked at him and went, "Oh, it's a little bit of what's the word? An unfashionable choice, maybe. It wasn't exactly a name to light up Marseille, but he's come in and quietly done a really good job in a side that is still largely in need of a lot of repair. There's a lot of players that will go in the summer, a lot of players that will come in, but some of the players Marseille have been linked with the Arsenal pair of Koscielny and Giroud this week. There's been a lot of talk that they are going to go big in the summer, and I think if they do, there is potential for them to be back in those Champions League spots. With this victory in this game, as you say, a 5-1 victory, they've closed the gap to Lyon to just 2 points. Obviously, that is pending this Lyon-Bastia situation. So there is every chance they could get Europa League football. With Bordeaux drawing above them as well, we should say, 0-0 against Gijon on Sunday. So it is all getting close. And Marseille did play some lovely stuff, some very good goals in this game actually. Particularly Thauvin hat-trick goal was an absolute gem. Really took that beautifully, and his first goal was a lash into the corner as well. A couple of goals for Maxi Lopez, who's another player who's exciting quite a few. He's only 19 years of age. 2 goals for him. As for Khan, though, despite Santini's wonderful equalising goal, pulled one back when it was 2-0. He got it back to 2-1. It was a delightful chip, went in off the bar, which is always nice when they go in off the bar. But without his goals, Khan would be doomed. I think it's his 14th goal of the season in all comps. But I said, as I say, a few weeks ago that I feared for Khan, and sadly, I don't take any happiness in this. I think the form is starting to show that I might be right. It happens once in a while. 4 defeats in their last 5 games. The other was a draw. Shipping this many goals at home in a game that they really would have looked at and thought, okay, Marseille are riding high. But as you rightly said, they don't score that many goals. To concede 5 at home is what this is going to do to their confidence. And they looked really, really punch drunk. So it's a really damaging defeat for them, and given the fact that other teams above them won, in particular Metz, who got a 2-1 victory over Nancy, that pulls them realistically clear. I think now it's 1 from 3, because I think the other 2 are probably going to go. So it's a really bad result this for Caen. But as for Marseille, credit where credit's due, and it's another club, as we've mentioned before with Lille in the summer, who you might want to keep quite a close eye on, because I think there'll be a lot of ins and a lot of outs.
Yeah, exciting times there at the old giant, or sleeping giant, as they say. We'll jump up to the top end of the table. The big game of the weekend, Nice hosting PSG. Should we just quickly mention Monaco, who had played earlier?
Yes.
They got themselves a 3-1 win at home against Toulouse.
Yes.
So the pressure was all on PSG. They knew they needed a win to keep themselves in the title hunt. And this was probably their toughest game left. And Nice turned up.
Nice were nice. Nice were very nice on the eye. Has to be said, the performance from Monaco on the Saturday before was, and I hate to use cliches, but I will, the performance of champions. They were superb second half. It was 0-0 at half time, and Ola Toivonen, remember him? Probably not. But he put Toulouse 1 up completely against the run of play a minute into the second half. And if ever you're going to concede a goal straight after the half time, that's the time when you go, ooh, people start to look around. Can they respond? Can they come back in the game? And Kamil Glick responded within 2.5 minutes. That's the way to respond if ever there was one. And it got Monaco level. The rest, another goal. He put them in front at 2-1. And then a late Thomas Lemar goal, 15 minutes to go, sealed the victory. Just a very quick one on Kylian Mbappe. I know we've kind of lauded him over this season, and obviously rightly so. But the goal scoring output, 18 goals in 18 games now. It's not bad, is it? It really is just astonishing.
I've got no problems with talking about Mbappe, but he really needs to sort that celebration out. I'm not having that. That's terrible.
It's a bit budget, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit budget, and it's a bit like, I know you're a good kid, but you know. You've got to hit. You know, I don't particularly like Ronaldo's celebration, but he's earned it. I was going to
say that it's a little bit Ronaldo, isn't it?
Ronaldo's earned his celebration. He can get away with that. And Mbappe, you're very, very good, but you've got a few years yet before you can be that arrogant.
Yeah. I think overall, he's very grounded, but the celebration is a bit dodge. I'm more of a fan of the knee slide myself, but yes, so knee slide combined with the crossing of the arms, maybe. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. But yeah, nevertheless, performance of champions from Monaco. Anything but a performance of champions, though, from PSG, who spectacularly threw the baby out with the bathwater in this one. It was just a mess. Has to be said, Nice were fantastic. They played some really, really good football, pleasing on the eye. Our friend and yours, John, Mario Balotelli, opening the scoring on 26 minutes. Brilliant piece of play. Cutting inside and unleashing a drive into the far corner. Ricardo Pereira with the run to set him up, which was equally impressive, and he himself got a wonderful second goal on the 48th minute just after the break, cutting in from the right hand side and unleashing a beautiful curler into the top corner. Marquinhos headed a scruffy goal back for PSG, and at that stage you thought, okay, maybe it's game on, but a late goal from Donis to secure the 3 points basically succumbs or kills off PSG for me. I think that is the end of their title hopes, particularly given that Monaco have got a game in hand. The implosion was complete when I think it's fair to say that PSG were wound up throughout this game. Edinson Cavani was in particularly very spiky in this game. A lot of arguments during his performance. Balotelli's twinkle-toed footwork wound up Blaise Matuidi a treat. If you haven't seen that, it's on my timeline. Have a look at that. It's quite amusing. And then two red cards for PSG. Late on, Thiago Motta for what can only be described as I don't really know how to describe it, really, a launching spear almost to take out his opponent. So that was obviously a straight red. The best bit was when you look at him. Actually, it's probably more of a clothesline looking at it again. You look at his reaction. He's like, what, me? What have I done? It's just bizarre. And then Di Maria, of all people, losing his rag late on as well with what was 100% a red card challenge. It was high. It was late. Really poor challenge from the Argentine. He was dismissed as well, which, of course, means 2 more suspensions. They can probably cope without Motta. But can they cope without Di Maria in the form he's been in? Not so sure. And with the news that Lucas Moura has essentially said that he's going to be off in the summer, PSG are probably going to have to go big to put this right. And I want to bring Joel in very quickly, if I may, here, because Joel, I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of this game, or in particular Unai Emery's face as the third goal went in for Nice late on. He did the old sucking of the teeth, puffing out of the cheeks kind of expression. Do you think that's a return to Spain sealed for him, and maybe a return to Sevilla, perhaps, if Sampaoli walks?
Yeah, I did see, and John mentioned it, and I did see that he was linked with Roma, which would make sense to link back up with Monchi. But the fit with Sevilla would obviously be great. I think they would take him back, to be honest. I know he left them in a situation which wasn't ideal within his contract, but I think he would be a good fit for him to go back to Sevilla, especially with Sampaoli looking to move on. Although, he's hated in Valencia, but he could potentially go back to Valencia as well. So he's got options. He's a good coach. I just don't think it's worked at PSG, has it, at all? He was on for borrowed time after the 6-1, but I think that this weekend's just nailed in the coffin.
Yeah, bang on. Yeah, 100%. I think he was a dead man walking before then. But this, because ultimately, as John said, this was their last big test, arguably anyway, of the big clubs to face, and they went down fairly comfortably. I thought Nice were easily the best side. So, yep, I think, and hopefully, it's Monaco's title. Nothing against PSG and our good friend PG Nez, but I think everyone would like to see Monaco win this title. So, albeit not confirmed, I think it's pretty close now.
Yeah, really, really good performance from Nice, and I do love it when Balotelli starts winding people up with his little step overs.
And boy, did he! Yeah.
Always makes me chuckle. I'll just run through the other results, and then you can give us the table, Chris. Angers lost at home 2-1 to Lyon. Obviously, we'll talk about their Europa League game as well coming up. Lille got a 3-0 win away at Montpellier. Lorient, sorry Chris, they lost 1-0 away at Nantes. Saint-Etienne with a 2-0 win away at Guingamp. And the last result was, as Chris mentioned, Dijon getting a 0-0 with Bordeaux. So if you just want to run us through the table, Chris.
Yes. So as we say, Monaco 3-point cushion over PSG at the top with a game in hand still. So if they win that, I think I'm right in saying they need now 2 wins from their last 4 games. So potentially this could all be done and dusted within a fortnight. PSG 3 points back on 80 points. Monaco 83, I should say. Nice closed the gap actually on PSG, who are by no means secure in second place, which would be a real fall away if they surrendered that as well. Nice 77 points now. now. Lyon all the way back, 20 points adrift in fourth. Wow, 57 points. Bordeaux, 56 points with their drop points this weekend. And Marseille closing the gap on 55 in sixth. St Etienne, 7th on 49, 48 for Nantes in 8th. Rennes and Guingamp make up the top 10 with Lille, Toulouse and Montpellier 11th, 12th and 13th. With the horrible run of losses for Angers slipping to 14th, 5 straight defeats for them, 39 points. Metz also 39 points with their big win this weekend over Nancy. Surely that's them safe now. They have a 5-point cushion to Lorient, who is 16th now with their defeat, 34 points. Dijon 17th, 33 points. Caen slipping into that relegation playoff spot and also on 33 points. Nancy 32 points and Bastia 31 points. As we say, Bastia could be docked points, and obviously if that happens then they're doomed. But I think now it is going to be, well, realistically it's going to be 3 from 3 from 5 or 2 from 4, whichever way you look at it, depending on where you sit with Bastia.
Yeah, all very tight down at the bottom. Just quickly, Lyon obviously have faced Ajax in the Europa League. We already talked about Monaco, obviously facing Juventus. Lyon are playing Ajax on the Wednesday. It's an early kick-off, 5:45 UK time. I believe it's because it's a special Memorial Day in the Netherlands on Thursday, so that's why the game has been moved to the early kick-off on Wednesday. Apologies if I've got that incorrect, but I think that's the reasoning behind it. Do you fancy their chances in that?
Well, again, it's Lyon, isn't it? You never know what's going to turn up, do you? I should say, actually, they are, or the choice of my game for the week next week is probably going to be in Lyon against Nantes, actually, which I know is a bit of a weird one because Marseille-Nice is a huge game on Sunday night, but Lyon-Nantes is a really big fixture for Lyon to secure that place they're in. I do fancy them over 2 legs against Ajax, but I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I think this one is going to be another that will go all the way, possibly sort of extra time, maybe even penalties all the way again, because I just don't back Lyon to keep clean sheets. And Ajax, as we saw against Schalke in the last round, they've got some really good young players, as have Lyon, to be fair. So it's kind of it is the proper hipster's choice of the semi-finals, but I think Lyon just about will have enough. But it'll be no way it'll be straightforward.
Yeah, so hopefully lots of goals in that one.
Yes.
That's it from Liga this week.
Yes, indeed. Very quick side note as well. Sergio Conceição signed a new contract with Nantes for their managerial services for next season as well. So just a quick nod to him. Right, we will leave France behind then and slip over to Germany next, where we have champions. I'm sure you can guess who they are. It's this week's Bundesliga. Right, John, this is the part where you and I sort of muddle our way through a little bit of German action. We will start, of course, with Bayern Munich, who secured their 5th title in 5 years, and a rather special record for one Carlo Ancelotti. They won 6-0 in Wolfsburg. Where do we begin? But Bayern Munich champions again. So your thoughts on what is that record that Carlo now proudly has?
Well, he's won the title in, as a manager for, let's see, Germany, England, Spain. Did he win? No, he didn't win in Spain, sorry. He won Italy. PSG as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So the only one he did miss, was Spain. But, he won the Copa del Rey and the Champions League and the UEFA Super Cup and the World Club Cup with Real Madrid. So
not too bad, is it?
It's all right.
Yeah, it's not bad overall.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, the game itself was. You expected a win, and they needed a response because they'd lost midweek to Dortmund in the DFB, the Pokal semi-final. So that was a really big disappointment for them. And after coming out of the Champions League the way they did. they needed some response. Just on the semi-final itself, I actually thought Dortmund were a little bit lucky. I thought Bayern Munich were the better team for the majority of the game and just went to sleep at key moments, and Dortmund exploited it. But as for this game, that was classic Bayern, just pulling goals out whenever they needed them, pressuring the team, keeping the ball, just not letting Wolfsburg play, who, to be fair, Wolfsburg have had a dreadful season anyway and didn't really expect anything from it. As for their season, it's a really weird one. It's hard to grade because if you win the league so comfortably, it's like, yeah, you've done your job, but it's kind of, that's par for Bayern Munich now, isn't it? You know, win the league and everything else is kind of, is the extras, what you expect. So, whilst the Pokal wouldn't have been top of their list of cups to win, it's certainly something they would have wanted as an extra trophy. The Champions League, disappointment. Although I thought Madrid were better over the two legs, they're still going to be disappointed with the performance and some of the referee decisions in the game. And it's kind of a funny season because, you know, Müller hasn't had a great year for Bayern. The young players other than Kimmich haven't really been in the team, like Koeman and Renato Sanchez haven't really played at all. Philipp Lahm is retiring, Xabi Alonso is retiring, Robben and Ribéry, you feel they're sort of getting to the end of their career now, so they've got kind of a rebuild job there at Bayern Munich. I don't expect it to be a struggle for them in terms of the league, but as for the Champions League and things like that, that's what they've got to compete. The question now is how long Carlo stays at the club. I think they're pleased, obviously, because he's won the league and he's done, which is the first objective, get that done. And overall, the play has been decent this season. But I can see him maybe doing one more year, and that might be his tilt in Munich. So I'll be interested to see who they look to as a managerial replacement eventually. But I think Carlo maybe does one more year, and then his time at Bayern is done. So if you're a Bayern Munich fan, you probably like grade it as a C for the season, which sounds ridiculous when you win the league, but it's just the expectation of the club.
Yeah, and as for Wolfsburg, I mean, that was a paddling, if ever I saw one, and they are still in some serious bother down at the wrong end of the table, which we can touch on in a second. Quick shout out for Julian Nagelsmann, who's secured Champions League football for Hoffenheim with a 1-0 victory over Eintracht Frankfurt on Sunday. Hubner with a very last kick of the game with the winner there. So, I mean, that's a huge achievement, isn't it, for him? And I know we've talked about RB Leipzig a lot this season, but that's a massive achievement for a club of Hoffenheim size when you consider the manager's, 29? It's just nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really impressive. And, you know, at the moment, the sort of the rest of their season is, can they get the automatic spot? Which would be really, really impressive. There's still a chance they could even finish second, which would just be ridiculous. So to finish above Dortmund would be an amazing achievement, but to finish second in the league would, it's just unreal. And I think Nagelsmann would probably be. The problem he's got against him is his age, and obviously it's his first season. But I think if he does, stays at Hoffenheim and does something impressive like this again, and does well in Europe next season with Hoffenheim, then Bayern Munich maybe you might look to him and go, we're going to take an educated gamble, if you like, in a year's time, depending on how he gets on in his second season.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. But very good performance for Hoffenheim this season. And the two clubs that are directly above them both had 0-0s this weekend, which is rare in the Bundesliga. Leipzig drawing 0-0 with Ingolstadt, probably a more important point for the away side than RB Leipzig in that one. Late sending off for Morales didn't affect the results. That ended 0-0. And Dortmund drew 0-0 with Cologne, which, as you say, leaves Dortmund in a bit of a pickle at the moment, leaves them in fourth. We should say, of course, that Dortmund did win their DFB Pokal semi-final with Bayern Munich in midweek at the Allianz Arena, and they will play the mighty Eagles, who we won't mention who they beat in that semi-final, John. Probably best if we don't mention fine. That. Didn't happen. It's
Gladbach if anyone was guessing, but yeah.
Yes, indeed. Who did get a win this weekend? Goal for Lars Stindl and Nico Schultz with an absolute cracker. Muto with one goal back for Mainz, but a good result of that for Gladbach. So they're their league form at least is improving. I think that puts them up to or back into ninth, so mid-table bit to build on for next season. Werder Bremen keep up their amazing form of late with another win over Hertha BSC this weekend. Finn Bartels and Max Kruse, who else, with a 2-0 victory. Werder now up to 6th. Just incredible. Like, where has this form come from? Amazing.
This is this just quickly before we go into the other games. This is kind of why I enjoy watching the Bundesliga so much, because Bayern Munich do, at least for the last 5 years, have won the league every year, but below them you have absolutely no idea if your team's going to finish second or bottom. It's really impressive. You've got Werder, who were rock bottom awful, who have now gone all the way into a European spot. My team Gladbach, who at the start of the season couldn't get a win, couldn't get a draw even, have now got themselves into ninth and have a chance at Europa League. And I think, one, it's part down to the fact that coaches or younger coaches are given a chance in the league, but also, I know it sounds stupid, but just having that 2 teams less in the league makes every game mean something. You don't get these games where it's 2 teams who are just mid-table position and don't have anything to play for. You're either fighting to win the league, you're fighting for Champions League, you're fighting for Europa League, or you're fighting to stay in the league. There's no nothing games within the league, and I really do think the 18 team leagues give that bit more excitement, and everyone goes to win games rather than just we'll just settle for a draw here.
Yeah, I'd like to see it experimented with, particularly in the Premier League. I think I'd really like to see if it was changed over here. And I think France, with their relegation playoff spot, are moving towards that sort of system as well. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see if it goes across all the leagues. A couple of the other results, we have to talk about Hamburg, who lost 4-0 to Augsburg. Massive result this for Augsburg. With their 3 points, it takes them up to 13th in the table. Hamburg, though, back into oh-so-familiar territory, the relegation playoff spot. They're now 33 points, minus 29 goal difference. Only Darmstadt at the bottom of the table have got a worse goal difference. 4 defeats in the last 5. All of a sudden, they're in trouble again.
They are the... if there's any Hamburg fans listening, I apologise. Or any Sunderland fans, they are the Sunderland of the Bundesliga.
True, yeah.
They're not relegated yet, but they love that position in the table. They're so poor at the moment, and just so many things need to change at that club. It's really disappointing. It must be said, one of the goals in particular is really worth looking out for. Is Philip Max's goal for Augsburg was a really good goal out of those 4. But yeah, Hamburg just... You get the feeling with certain clubs, it's like Sunderland, kind of like Palermo and Serie. Sometimes a team, you can't keep doing this year on year out. Eventually you're just going to have to go. You're better off going down, rebuilding, and then trying to build yourself back up. And I think Hamburg are kind of getting to that point. It probably said it for the last couple of years, but surely this is the year they go down. I'm not wishing that on them, but I just think in the long run it might be better for them.
Yeah, I agree. This is, as you say, it's just too much seems to be broken with them. And speaking of broken, that leads us on to our sort of final game I just want to highlight, which was the Friday night game, which was Leverkusen and Schalke. This was an absolute mauling. I watched this game on Friday night. Leverkusen, all of a sudden, are in serious drama here. They've lost again, and again, it wasn't just a loss. I mean, it's 3 defeats in the last 5. They've lost 4-1 at home to Schalke. Now, Schalke don't really score goals away from home hugely. They were 3-0 up in 18 minutes. Bergstaller getting one, Haverdes and Schopf. Bergstaller going on to get a 4th as well with Kiesling. Yes, he's still going, getting one back for Leverkusen. They're in a real pickle, though, aren't they? I mean, as I say, it's a heavy home defeat. Their manager, Typhoon Korkut, is only in situ to the end of the season, seemingly, and I don't think he'll be there after these results. With Augsburg winning, they've only got 36 points, Leverkusen, and although they sit 12th, that is only 3 points above Hamburg in 16th. They need to get a result and fast, don't they, Leverkusen? And if you look at their run-in, which I'm going to give you now, away to Ingolstadt this weekend, obviously fighting for their lives, home to Cologne and all those Modest goals, and then they finish away to Hertha, who are chasing Europe. They're in a real pickle, aren't they?
Yeah, it's all gone wrong this season. I think you can look to Roger Schmidt. Things weren't working out under him, and the manager change hasn't helped at all. Generally, you'll get some kind of response when a new manager comes in, even if it's for 2 or 3 games, and we just haven't seen that. This is a team that we're in the Champions League, you know, and there's a real chance of them getting relegated. And when you look through the players they've got in the team, they're not bad footballers. Kevin Volland is a player who lots of clubs around Europe have looked at and will probably be interested in the summer, because the way Leverkusen are playing, you can't imagine him wanting to stay there. Stefan Kiesling, yes, whilst old, he's a very experienced player and you know, he knows how to get goals. Kevin Campbell is very experienced. Obviously played for quite some time in the Bundesliga. Karim Bellarabi, very exciting young German international. Julian Brandt, Toprak, you know, Bert Leno. These are all great footballers, and they're just not performing. I don't think you can put it all on the managers, because eventually the players have to take some responsibility for themselves. And in this game, I mean, the spaces between the midfield and the defence were huge. There were so many gaps. The two centre-backs, Toprak and Jedvaj, were nowhere near each other. Bergstaller was just running through spaces all game long. Goretzka was having a field day just picking out passes, and to be perfectly honest, it probably should have been more goals. The really sad scenes at the end of the game was pleasing depending on how you look at it, was the Leverkusen players going over to talk to the fans, to try and explain themselves, because the fans demanding to know what's going on, because they've got past the point of, you know, blaming the ownership and the managers, and to the point of, you know, the players have got to take some responsibility, and they're just not doing it.
Really was amateur, wasn't it? Some of that defending. I mean, you know, you and I watch Arsenal every week. We know what amateur defending is. And Jesus, that was. And of course, Joel watches Hull, who've been a lot better this season, but at the start of the season would have seen the same. But some of that defending from Leverkusen was just like bordering on neglect. It just didn't want to be near the ball.
Yeah.
And as you say, and you look at that squad, Jonathan Tah is the big one I look at there, and I go, wow, he's only played 17 games this season, but I mean, surely he's one of the most up and coming players in the Bundesliga. As you said, is Bellarabi, and Benjamin Heinrichs is probably going to move on. Havertz, who we focused on the Hipster's Choice last week. Leon Bailey, who's come in for big money, as you said, Volland. Brandt, there's so many players, they just shouldn't be where they are. Don't forget Javier Hernandez, of course, is still there. So, and Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who, whilst suspended at the moment, at 23 years of age, there's no way he's there next season, I don't think. So it's a real mess at Leverkusen, and who knows, the unthinkable could become reality. We will just quickly run through the other results from this week's Bundesliga, which ones we haven't covered, of course. I think we covered most of them. Darmstadt, they just keep winning, don't they? They will not go away. I think they're still going to go until a 5-point gap.
They're just doing it to wind you up.
They are, aren't they? It's like Crotone. They just keep on surviving. But they got an impressive 3-0 win over Freiburg this weekend. Goals from Platz, Gondorf and Shiplock with the winning goals there. We've mentioned all the other games on the Saturday, and indeed, in fact, we've mentioned all the other games actually, and we covered them all. So they are the other results. The table-wise, as we say, Bayern Munich confirmed champions now, 73 points, 10 clear of RB Leipzig on 63, Hoffenheim 58, Borussia Dortmund fourth now on 57. With Hertha, 46 points. There's quite a gap there, with 45 Werder Bremen, 44 Freiburg, 42 for Cologne, same points for Gladbach in 9th, and Schalke 41, along with Eintracht Frankfurt in 11th and 41 as well. Leverkusen, as we said, just on the edge of that relegation scrap, 36 points in 12th. Augsburg 35 from there, 31 played in 13th. Mainz 33, Wolfsburg 33 and Hamburg 33, technically sharing 14th, 15th, 16th place, although Hamburg are in that relegation playoff on goal difference alone, which could be a huge factor looking at their goal difference. Ingolstadt still alive on 29 points. As we said, the two teams meet next weekend. That's our game of the week, no doubt about it. And Darmstadt just about clinging on, but as we say, pretty much doomed. But 3 straight wins, they are not going without a fight. Would you say that game is your game of the week as well? That massive game, Ingolstadt Leverkusen. It's a 2:30 kickoff on Saturday next week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. If Leverkusen lose that, then wow. I don't know what their fans are going to do.
Well, I mean, just put it in perspective. If they lose that, Ingolstadt would go up to 32 points. Which would leave Leverkusen only 4 points away. But you have to look at the teams below Leverkusen. So Augsburg are away at Gladbach. You'd like to think Gladbach will be favourites to win that, but you never know. And the other teams playing Mainz play Hamburg. which again, is a massive game for Hamburg. If they don't win that, I mean, Mainz could close the gap to Leverkusen. And Wolfsburg, where are Wolfsburg? Away at Eintracht Frankfurt, which is no easy game either. So, I mean, it could be really tough.
Darmstadt have the easy game away to Bayern Munich.
Yes, nice easy one. I think if they lose that is them officially toast, isn't it? I think I'm right in saying.
That would be 22, so I think technically they could still just... like, the maths is ridiculous on it because of their goal difference, but yeah.
Yeah. I quite like this time of the season when things are done and dusted, so we can just draw a line and say, okay, we know who's going up, we know who's going down, let's just move on. So, yeah, okay. Right, well, that's Bundesliga done for another week. We will, of course, keep coming back to it week in, week out until we can get Drew back. And if you've got any questions, please ask them to us. We'll do our best. If not, we'll ask Drew. So that's how we get out of that particular sticky spot. Right, that's the main four of our leagues done for another week. So let's see what else is going on around the world as we go into this week's best of the rest. Okay, this week's Best of the Rest, we're going to go for a Best of the Rest with a difference this week. Rather than focusing on another league, we're going to focus on another competition entirely. I think somebody requested this a while ago. If you're listening and I've forgotten your name, I do apologise, but someone asked me how the Copa Libertadores was going. Well, sir or madam, you're in luck because that's where this week's focus is. If you don't know, this is the equivalent of the Champions League in South America. So lots and lots of teams, lots and lots of groups, so I'll just quickly run through them. In Group 1, you have Botafogo, who, of course, are Brazilian. They are top of that group along with Barcelona. No, not that one. They are a Barcelona Girkai. So they are currently sharing the top spot. They're in Ecuador, by the way, in case you wondered. In Group 1, Estudiantes and Atlético Nacional are also in that group. 7 points apiece for Botafogo and Barcelona. 3 for Estudiantes. Nacional have lost all 3 of their games and are bottom. Group 2, Santos of Brazil, that's Neymar's former club. They've got 5 points and a top from Santa Fe, who are, I believe, Colombian. They are in second place in that group with 4 points, along with the strongest from Bolivia, great name, and Sporting Cristal are fourth and bottom of that group on 2 points. Group 3, River Plate of Argentina, played 3, won 3, woof. They are top of that division, 9 points. Medellin are second on 6 points. Emelec and Melgar are bottom of that group respectively. Melgar have actually played 4 games, as have Medellin. 3 points apiece for Emelec and Melgar in that group. Group 4 sees Atletico Paranaense. They are top, 7 points from Flamenco, 6 points. Universidad Católica are 5 points in third place, and San Lorenzo of Argentina bottom of that particular group on 4 points. All teams have played 4 games there. And then in Group 5, Palmeiras of Barcelona of Brazil are top, 10 points from their 4 games played. They've won 3 of them and drawn once. Wilstermann, who I also think are of Bolivia, they are 6 points in second. Atletico Tucumán and Peril, having a shocker actually, Peril, they're bottom, 3 points, Tucumán with 4 points. Group 6, if you're still with us, Godoy Cruz of Argentina, 10 points, 3 wins and a draw from their 4 played. They are 3 points clear of Atletico Mineiro, the former club of Gilberto Silva, for any Arsenal fans listening in. They're 7 points. Libertad are third in that group on 4 points, and Sport Boys, great name that is, isn't it? They're bottom. They've lost 3 of their 4 games played. Sport Boys of Bolivia, in case you were wondering. Group 7, Lanús of Argentina are top, 7 points. They're joint top with Nacional on 7 points. Chapecoense, 4 points from their games played. They are still in with a shot, although it's a long shot. And Zulia are also in with a shot, 4 points bottom as well of that group. And Group 8, Grêmio of Brazil top, 10 points. Guarani are second on 7 points, 6 points for Deportes Iquique on 6 points, 2 wins and 2 defeats for them. And Zamora are gone. Played 4, lost 4, conceded 13. Ouch. They are dead and buried at the bottom of the table on Group 8. So that is them gone. Just a couple of quick stats then from the current standings. Fred, that well-known English name, Brazilian of course, as Atletico Mineiro, 5 goals. He's the leading scorer from Lucas Barrios, who I'm sure played for Dortmund. Am I right, John? I think he played for Dortmund. I might have to look that up.
The name rings a bell, yeah.
Paraguayan centre forward. Yes, he did play for Dortmund in 2010 to 12. Also played for Spartak Moscow and Montpellier during his time. But he's got 3 goals in the group stage, as has a guy who can't pronounce his name, who's an Argentinian forward for Iquique. Shall I give it a go? Bilkewicz. We'll go with that. Karoka of Iquique also on 3 goals. Luan of Grêmio on 3. Jerisi, Willian, Gonzalez, Herrera. There's a whole load of players on 3 goals in this division. The disciplinary records, there's just the 2 bad boys at the top of this. Cordoba of Sport Boys, 2 yellows and 1 red. I'm frantically looking to see if it is. No, it's not the same one that played for Inter. I would have chuckled if it was. And Rossi of Chapecoense also with a similar record. And as far as the assists go, Bustamante, that's a great name, isn't it, of Iquique, he leads with 3 assists, as does Cardozo of Wilstermann, Alonso, Lima, Bagese and Mora of Grêmio also all have 2, as does Fernandez of River Plate and Fernandez of Melgar. So that's where we stand. We've still got in most of the groups, we've got 1 round of fixtures to be played. In the others, there's still a couple of 2 games to be played. Once the group stages have been completed, we go into the final stages, which I think is the last 16, I would guess. So we will keep you across when all the groups are completed. We'll let you know who's qualified and who's going where. So there we go. That was a very, very long and a long and drawn out version of the Copa Libertadores. If you want any particular focus on any of those clubs we've mentioned, we'll do our best. We can't promise anything, but we will do our best to try and sandwich in those clubs for your interest.
That must be the only draw in the world that's longer than the Champions League.
It is a little bit, yeah, it is a little bit, and it's another one of those where you get the odd club and you go, where are they from? Who are they? I'm not really sure. So apologies if I butchered any of that, but hopefully you've been able to track that. Soccerway is a very good website to find out this information if you want more. So if we haven't done it justice, I'm sorry. Right, okay, that's the rest rounded up for another week. So on to this week's player profile, and we've got a very special guest for this one. It's this week's Hipster's Choice. Right, this week's Hipster's Choice comes in the form of a championship player. So if you're reading between the lines, you might know who we've got as a special guest for this segment. But before we bring him on to talk about this player, we'll of course give you a full review of who it is and what we know about them. So this week's Hipster's Choice is Fulham's left back, Ryan Sessegnon. So what do we know about Ryan Sessegnon? Well, as I say, he is a left back or left full back or indeed left midfielder, whichever you prefer. He's an England under-19 international, wears the 30 shirt for Fulham. He was born in, get this, May the 18th, 2000. Sickening, I know, that makes him 16 years of age. He's 5'10" and weighs 157 pounds. He is left-footed, as you might expect, playing down the left side. You can stalk him on Twitter and Instagram. He's RyanSess30 on Instagram, verified, and he's at Ryan Sessegnon, not verified, on Twitter. So what do we know? Well, one particular youngster who's forging a name for himself amongst the footballing community is the young Ryan Sessegnon of Fulham. He's a 16-year-old left-back. As we mentioned, he's caught the attention of several Premier League giants with his performances so far in the Championship at Fulham. Born in Roehampton, England, Ryan Sessegnon joined Fulham under-9s in the summer of 2008 alongside his twin brother, Stephen. A left-sided defender with attacking instincts, he's risen through the ranks quickly and was a regular for Steve Wigley's under-18 side in the 2015-16 season, despite being just 15 years of age. His good form in the academy did not go unnoticed by Slavica Jokanovic, who called Sessegnon up for first-team duties ahead of the 16-17 season, and he promptly scored his maiden senior goal in a 3-0 friendly over Brighton and Hove Albion. Sessegnon made his professional debut in the League Cup match against Leyton Orient, aged 16 years and 81 days, and on August the 16th, 2016, he's made his league debut in a match against Leeds, and on the 20th of August, he scored his first professional goal in a match against Cardiff City, becoming the first professional footballer in the English leagues to have been born in the 2000s to score a goal in a first-team game, and the youngest player to have scored in a championship match. Sessegnon has made 23 appearances for Fulham this season and scored 5 goals and provided 2 assists. He's been linked with several English top clubs, as we mentioned earlier. All of them are keen to secure his signature as the rising star of Championship football as of late. He's attracted attention from the continent as well, with both Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig having sent scouts to Craven Cottage. He's a typical modern-day fullback. He loves to get forward and help his teammates in their attacking endeavours, has tremendous pace, is a threat going forwards, but also shows excellent work ethic when trekking back or caught on the counter-attack. His confidence in getting forward shows with the amount of successful dribbles he makes. Very impressive for someone who plays at left-back. Statistics show that he's been very reliable when involved in a one-on-one duel, averaging just under 5 duels per match, including headers. Despite showing very good ability when pushing forward, his crossing could be improved. He also shows reluctance to use his right foot, even when doing a short pass to a teammate. And finally, he does encourage his opposition to switch the play a lot. Sometimes his smallish physique has been an issue for a very physical league. Sessegnon has also been rising through the England national ranks. He's been part of the England squads that competed at the Under-17 Euros last summer and has made 7 appearances, including 1 goal for the Under-19s to date. So that's what we know about Ryan Sessegnon from a worded perspective, as it were. Our thanks to Kelly for putting together those notes, as usual. And this is the point where we introduce our very special guest. You might know him as Ross Bramble, because that's what we know him as. Hello, Ross.
Good evening. That's what I know me as well. So that's ironic.
I'd be very concerned if you didn't know yourself as your own name. That'd be very, very worrying. We've dragged you out of your Monday evening for a special guest slot on this pod because we know he's a player that you like a lot. And when I chucked out the option of including Championship players in the Hipster's Choice, you were keen to put this man to the front of the queue. So what do you know of him? What have you seen of him this season, and what's your thoughts on his future?
Well, what I know of him is essentially what you've just read out, because at 16 years old, he hasn't really had any time to make a name for himself on a grander scale, I suppose. I think one of the big issues, if you've been following the Championship this year, one of the biggest issues with the division is there's not a lot of TV coverage. So you only really get to see teams in flashes. But Ryan Sessegnon is one that not only do you see quite a lot of in games, but he's also quite heavily featured in just highlights packages that you see on TV, etc. Because the season he's had has been absolutely exceptional for someone that's 16 years old. Like you said there, he started off at left back for Fulham, and it wasn't long before they realised that this kid's got a lot of pace. He's very direct. He's tough to handle. So let's move him forward. And they pushed him further forward, and suddenly he's getting more goals and more assists. Still very good in the tackle, still very responsible for someone so young. And any pundit that I've seen on TV talking about him, all they can say is this kid is 16. You know, it's strange to think that he's only 16 when he plays like a 24-year-old. You know, he looks very composed, knows what he's doing. And it's very, very impressive. That's the only word I can think for him is just impressive for someone so young to think he was born in the year 2000. And he's already looking like a really well-adjusted professional footballer. So I think the sky's the limit for this kid, and anyone that has seen him play for Fulham, I think, would completely agree.
Of course, and we know there's been others that have come from the Championship and beyond. So we look at John Stones and Mason Holgate, Rob Holding, the young lad Cohen Bramall that Arsenal have recently signed, who's of a similar age and a similar position as well, coming through. So what's the best thing in your opinion for his career now? Does he stay at Fulham for another season, or is there a Premier League club or indeed a club in Europe that you think he could take his game on another level if he moved to?
I think at 16 years old, I think the best thing would be to stay with Fulham. I think the problem is that he has been so impressive that both Manchester clubs have reportedly anyway shown interest in him. I think Pep Guardiola will absolutely love him. I think Jurgen Klopp would absolutely love him as well. And I was reading this morning that Liverpool and Man United have approached Fulham officially to talk about a deal for him. I have the feeling that a lot like Joe Gomez, who left Charlton to go to Liverpool, if he left at 19, I think Jurgen Klopp or a manager like him would see him in training and say, you know what, this kid is going to be the future, but he wouldn't get the game time. I appreciate that Joe Gomez has had injuries, but I just don't think Ryan is at a point now where he'd be starting in the Premier League, despite the fact he is very, very good. So I would be tempted to say that the best thing for him would be to stay with Fulham for at least another year. We have to make sure that we're not overhyping a player who's only just broken out after all. So another season with Fulham, regardless of whether that's Championship or Premier League, I think it would be probably the best bet for him. But Red Bull, or Leipzig, I should say. Red Bull could be anyone. Leipzig, I think, would be another very good shout because Ollie Burke has now set the precedent, having gone there. And okay, he hasn't played thousands of games, but certainly he has improved as a player. I think Sessegnon is another one that Leipzig could get a lot out of as well. So there's options for him, but for me personally, considering his age, if he was a couple of years older, even if he was just 18, 19, I would have said probably time to look for a bigger club that can, show you another side of football. But I think at 16, the best bet for him probably is to stay with Fulham.
Well said, well said. Of course, we could see Fulham in the Premier League with him in their side anyway. He could well be going up this season, and that seems as good a place to ask you, Ross. If people don't already subscribe to our channel, which frankly I'd be shocked at if they're listening to this, but if they don't, where can they hear you talk about Fulham and all Championship and EFL goodliness on a weekly basis?
You can come and follow us on the English breakfast side of the podcast, which is usually hosted by Kris, who's absconded the past few weeks, but hopefully he'll be back soon. But yeah, we talk EFL football, which is obviously the Championship, League One and League Two. The League One season is now wrapped up. We have the playoffs kicking off this week. League Two and the Championship finish next week, and then the playoffs start for them as well. So plenty going on. But yeah, if you're interested in EFL and English football in general, English breakfast is where you'll find me and sometimes Kris.
Indeed, and of course Joel and Josh as well. So good stuff. If you've got 10 minutes, Ross, you can hang around if you like, because I had got a question that concerns European football for you, which we can tie in. So if you've got the time, you can stick around by all means.
Yeah, fair enough. If there's one I can answer, then yeah, great.
Fantastic. This is the point where Joel and John start writing down really complicated questions for you to answer now. But
right, I do have one on this young man actually.
Oh, go for it,
Ross. Is he smart enough to know that you should show Arjen Robben onto his right foot instead of his left? Because there's plenty of clubs looking for a defender who can do that.
I'm not sure any coach in the world has ever thought of telling a defender to do that to Arjen Robben. So no, I would guess not. But he certainly looks very intelligent for his age, but I'm not sure anyone is that intelligent.
Stop the search, John. It's not going to happen. Say that again, Joe?
I've just got a really quick question on Sessegnon for Ross. Is there more chance of a big club signing him and then loan him straight back to Fulham as part of the deal? Is that more likely to happen?
I think it depends who signs him. If it was Arsenal, for example, I think their policy probably would allow for him to go on loan somewhere. If it was Liverpool, I suspect, especially considering their left-back problems, I suspect Sessegnon would be kept in-house. And honestly, I think that would be the worst thing for him. I think he needs to play consistent games to iron out some issues in his game, primarily going forward, because like Kris was saying there, his final product is still not there yet. I think that would upset some Premier League managers, but if someone like Pep Guardiola bought him, I think they'd want to keep him in-house. But if it was someone like Arsenal, then yeah, I could see him going back on loan somewhere.
We wonder whether Man United might stretch their links with the Chris Smalling deal that they had with Fulham all those years ago as well. I wonder if they might revisit Fulham for their players. But we shall see. We shall see. It's another exciting addition to the Hipsters' Choice. And of course, once you make the Hipsters' Choice list, the hype is real. So there's no going back now, Ryan. You've been earmarked. That's it. So people will be watching you. Right. Okay. Well, thank you to Ross for stepping in for that. One segment to go then, which is where we answer some of your lovely listener questions. It's this week's Onion Bag. Right, not too many this week, so we should have a little bit of time just to get into these. First one's actually for me, and I must answer it very quickly because I'll forget about it otherwise. It comes from UZ at Mr. Arsenal 93. I reckon he's a gooner somehow. He wants to know about PSG. He said, after seeing Thiago Motta with a clothesline attack and Di Maria with a dropkick attack, which player/manager do you think would be a good pro wrestler or MMA fighter? See, Ross, I told you there's a reason I kept you around. You can answer that one first. Anybody that you from the EFL or Championship you think will make a very good MMA fighter or wrestler, maybe?
Depends on the kind of fighter, I suppose. I mean, Aidan Flint gets stuck in for Bristol City. He's a very good, bulky defender. Paul Robinson for Birmingham. I know he's about 39 now, but he looks like he could give me a wallop. I mean, there's plenty of young svelte characters that I'm sure could be a cruiserweight, but if you're looking for just a knockout, drag him out brawl, I would probably pick Paul Robinson because that guy looks quite brutal.
Yeah, agreed. My two shouts are both Man United people. Zlatan would be the archetypal classic arrogant heel, as would Jose Mourinho, of course, if you're talking pro wrestling. So they're perfect for that role. Joel, have you got anybody from your leagues that you can Kuchka, surely?
Well, Kuchka, yeah. I mean, like the smaller sort of guys, Kuchka, De Rossi, but it's easy. The hardest man in football is Mario Mandzukic. Nothing ever makes him smile. Nothing ever intimidates him. Juventus have got a brilliant series of videos where fans tell him jokes, or they show him really sad videos of puppies and things, and his face just doesn't flinch. It's superb.
Just no reaction. Callahan would be a good flyweight as well, wouldn't he? I would imagine, as would Lorenzo Insigne. So, anyone in Spain you could think of, Joel, that would fit the MMA or pro wrestling world?
Yeah, I think I'd go with a tag team of the Atletico Madrid management team. So Burgos is a reputation, and Simeone just on his own as well, but as part of a tag team would be formidable. So can't look past those, and maybe Gavi as well as the captain.
Oh yes.
I just thought, what about Lee Catamol / Joey Barton, since he's now essentially retired?
Oh, goodness me. Yeah. Oh, in fact, the whole Middlesbrough back line probably would arguably Gibson and George Friend, who could be a manager. You could think of 1,000, couldn't you? Superb. I mean, as for France, I mean, Mario's the obvious one, isn't it, really? Big Balotelli. I think Thiago Motta, as very nicely highlighted by you, said, is a fantastic name to pull out because he's just crackers. I think Serge Aurier would also be an interesting pro wrestling character. I can imagine him in a very floral number with tassels attached.
He'd take too long to get his leotard on.
That's true, and his entrance would take forever, wouldn't it? Like, just getting his boots on and getting down the ramp. So that is a brilliant question, you said. Thank you. And I'm sure, as people are listening to this, that I'm sure there's thousands of people sitting there going, "Oh, what about so-and-so?" So tweet them in. Fantastic. Speaking of tweets we got in, actually, I have to give a mention, if I'm scrolling down the timeline, I do have to give a shout out to a gentleman who pointed out, do you remember we had the question last week about goal music, about being played after goals went in?
Oh, yes, yeah.
We got a tweet from Marcus Jackson. I've just given you a foreign name there, Marcus. Sorry. Marcus Jackson at Marcus_Tremaine. He tweeted us saying that the Wolfsburg anthem, when it's played, it is horrific. If you haven't heard this, I will retweet it from the podcast account now. So if people haven't heard it, do have a look at the retweet I've just put out. You might have to scroll down once we've released this podcast, but it is horrendous. So if you're concerned about what music is played at your grounds, have a listen to that. So that's all I'll say. Go and give it a listen. So thank you for Marcus's reply to that for last week.
Can I quickly throw in a song as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Southampton have started doing this, or they started playing this remix of My Way by Frank Sinatra. And they play it every time they walk out. And the fan base is literally 50-50 on it. Some think it's absolutely brilliant because it's specifically tailored to us, and some think it's just an absolute aberration. And I'm absolutely in that camp. If you haven't heard it, I suspect it's on YouTube somewhere under the title We Are Southampton. It's beyond cringy for me, and I can't advocate it.
Yeah, I know a lot of Arsenal fans were very upset when they used Elvis at the Emirates last season. So I dread to think what that Southampton fans have got to that reaction. But keep those coming in, people. If you support a club that plays particularly cringy music, let us know. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I'm not having Spurs coming out to the Imperial March either. What's that about? Seriously?
Oh, it's not the Imperial March.
Oh, it's not.
No,
okay.
it's the music from episode 1 because I'm a massive Star Wars geek.
I was going to say I've been fully geeked out here, haven't I? Sorry,
yeah,
Star Wars fans.
It's some of the best music actually in the Star Wars franchise. It's the fight scene between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon Jinn. And now I will go and hide in the corner in shame.
Any Star Wars questions at JWelsh84? There you go. Yes, it's a brilliant song. I'm just not having it at football, but still. Right, back to football. Our regular contributor Tom at 5-Star Flips. This one's kind of for everyone, I guess. What business models, in inverted commas, teams such as Monaco and Dortmund, what do they have to do to be consistently competing domestically and in Europe against the likes of the European giants, i.e. Real Madrid, Barcelona and Bayern? Joel, I want to get your perspective on that first of all, because obviously you've got Real and Barca, who are, generally the monopoly of La Liga along with Atletico. So what do you think teams have to do to get up to that standard? Because there isn't another team in Spain that I can think of that's suddenly got a money injection or that could kick on, is there, that you can think of?
The only one is Atletico, are 50% owned by a Chinese consortium, so they've got a bit more money now. No, I don't. In Spain, there's nobody within the league who can match the big two, and it'll take Atletico a while to get there. That's partly down to the fact that they negotiate their own TV deals. So that is changing soon. So the money will be apportioned a lot more fairly, because at the minute, Real Madrid and Barcelona negotiate their own, so they take the lion's share of the TV revenue, and the rest get what's left. But they are trying to bring a bit of equality to it. I think in terms of the Monaco and Dortmund, in terms of the question, I think the only way they can get up there is by developing their own players and not having to go to the market and buy, or buying and selling, and then you can generate revenue that way, and then generally build up to get to a point where you don't need to no longer do that. I can't see another way of doing it unless you get a cash injection. So it is difficult, isn't it? But I think player trading is the way to do it. I think look at Sevilla, the way they've done it. They have consistently bought cheap and sold at high prices whilst maintaining decent league positions and done well off the back of it. It is a model, I think, with good recruitment that you can do it. But that said, they have had probably the best person in Europe doing that. Not everyone can master it. It only takes you to do it wrong once and you're stuck with a load of players who are not very good. And then your model's screwed, basically. But I think that is probably the way that these teams, the lower teams within that upper echelon of European clubs, can look to do it. But there is a massive gap, because it's so hard to catch those teams, because the marketing strategies are going to be a bit smarter. They're going to have coverage in the Far East, in America, all around the world. And it's hard to break that market, because a kid will only going to buy one shirt. He's not going to buy 10 shirts. So you've got to be the one that they're buying. So it is difficult, and I think to start from a standing start is incredibly hard. So you've got to do it quickly through probably player trading.
And on name alone as well, I guess Barcelona and Real Madrid are always going to be the clubs that people want to join, no matter who's got money or who else has got money around, is it? I suppose that's the problem. It's a tough one. Ross, have you got any thoughts on that, particularly from a sort of a championship and below aspect of, I know that those clubs are not going to be in Europe, but a club that gets into the Premier League, for example, that has got quite a bit of money to spend, what makes them, what do you think could make them compete against some of the European giants? Leicester's probably the best example, I guess we could use, as a club that's come up through the levels and competed in the Champions League.
Yeah, but they won the league, and no one else in the Championship is coming up and doing that. They need to do essentially what Southampton are doing. Not to tout my own club, but the slow build. I mean, when a Championship side comes up, you either roll the dice and say this team is good enough to get us up, but it's not good enough to keep us up, and you completely revamp the squad, or you stick with what you've got and you try and build slowly. Both are quite risky in modern day Premier League, but I think the only thing you can do if you have ambitions of getting that high is to pre-plan, to take it slowly, to know who you are, where you are, what you've got in comparison to the other teams in the division. And unless you can do something incredible like Leicester, then it's a case of getting safe and being there for a number of years. Because you think of someone like Stoke as well, who went up from the Championship, I want to say 2008-ish, and about 4 or 5 years later they were in the Europa League. So the first thing to do is to keep yourself stable, not just in the Premier League, but financially as well. And then year on year, you just have to look to get one place higher until you've made it. There's no quick fix, I don't think, for a Championship side unless you do something incredible.
Yeah, agreed. And go on, Joe.
Just to come in there, yeah, I think a really interesting model that I can't see anyone who's replicated it is what Chelsea are basically doing, where they're buying loads of young players, putting them on big money, loaning them out, taking massive loan fees, and then selling them for a profit at the end. And nobody's kind of cottoned on to that. And I think if you look at Chelsea, I'm not saying they've become sustainable because they rely massively on Abramovich's money, but not so much over the last 2 or 3 years have they relied on that massive influx of cash, because they've done well off player sales. If you think of Lukaku, if you think of De Bruyne, they've done that quite well. And even they're probably a buying player, Chelsea, that have got no intention of ever playing in the first team. They just know if they get them to Vitesse Arnhem for a couple of years and take the loan fee, for example, then they can maybe sell them for 5 or 6 million quid. Bamford, for example, was he ever going to play for Chelsea's team? Probably not. But they made enough in loan fees to justify buying him from Forest, I think it was, and then selling him for 7 or 8 million to Middlesbrough. So that Chelsea's a different model altogether. I've not really seen that before. They've got, it is something ridiculous though, isn't it? They've got like 40 or 50 players out on loan at any given time, and probably 90% of them have got no ever kind of chance of playing in the first team. I am assuming that that's what they're doing to make a profit, because it does seem unlikely that you'd sign that amount of young players and put them on big contracts to kind of put them into the first team, because there's too many players.
Yeah, agreed. I suppose, John, the only other example I can think of is Serie A, where there are notoriously a lot of players on very long loans to additional clubs or part ownership. That's the only other model I can think that I could use as an example. Is that fair? Does that still go on in Serie A?
Yeah, part ownership is now gone, and I think it's now banned in Europe. I think they're trying to ban it in South America or worldwide. I think FIFA are anyway. They don't want anything to do with it anymore, because obviously there's question marks over who it is who owns the player and what connections they've got to football in the first place. The long-term loan deals are very good. Juventus, who are a club who aren't short of money, have used it to their advantage. They had the sort of semi-loan kind of thing with Morata, where they, Madrid could buy him back, but they had first option if Madrid didn't intend on keeping him. They've done the deal with Koeman to Bayern Munich, who has got some game time. Bayern have exercised the right to buy him now at a decent price. Bayern can then sell him on to someone else if they want, but I think Juve gets part of the money. As for teams like Dortmund and Monaco, I think what they show is you have to take a bit of a gamble in signing young, talented players. You look at all the young players that Dortmund have signed, and they've signed even some more now for next season. Like Ousmane Dembele is obviously a really good example of someone who's done very, very well. You have to have the manager who's capable of getting the best out of them. But I think the difference between, say, Dortmund and Monaco is that what Monaco have got, they've still got a couple of players left over from when they did spend big money, who are older and have experience. The likes of Falcao, João Moutinho as well. So I think if you can have your model as getting in young talent, if you have to sell them, you're going to make a big profit, which is great because you can then reinvest that. But getting 1 or 2 players of a certain age, I think, getting that one centre-back who's in their 30s, who's been around Europe a bit, getting a midfielder who's a similar sort of age, getting an old head as a striker, just having them around the squad, I think gives you that little bit extra. And I think, it's the one thing that Monaco maybe had over Dortmund, if you sort of compare the two.
Agreed, yeah, and if you look at what Monaco are already doing it with Yuri Tielemans by the looks of it, where they are going to ship out a few in the summer by the looks of it, but Tielemans is already likely to be secured for the moving on process. So it's a good question, that, Tom, as usual.
Just one more team, I think, who've done it really well is Porto. I think over the generally bought low and sold really high, but the quality of players that they've had go through Porto is well, the two that Kris just mentioned, was João Moutinho and Falcao. Did João Moutinho go through Porto?
Yeah,
yes.
He did.
Yeah. Moutinho, yeah. There's a few others. Who's the other guy? You're right there. There's so many. A couple of their
Sandro
fullbacks.
at Porto.
Sandro, that's right.
Alexandro, yeah. There's been a lot of players that have come through there.
And they got Andre Silva now, who's going to go for big money as well.
Neo went to Madrid for 30 million from Porto.
Of course. Yeah.
So they've done it really. They've kind of got the South American market, and obviously James Rodriguez as well. So they've done really well off the South American market.
Yeah. There's a lot of teams to pull out. Shakhtar Donetsk are the only other one I can think of as well that import from Brazil and try and move them on quickly. So, yes, good question. Good question indeed. Two others then to finish with. This one is for you, John, from our good friend Jimmy at @NN_Guna. After this April, does Pioli still deserve a Mercato? Well, that's an Italian
transfer window.
Of course it is. Sorry, Jimmy. Long day. Or should he see out the season and move on? After last night's result, the home defeat to Napoli at San Siro, that decision seems to be likely to be taken out of his hands. Is that fair?
That's the rumour. The rumour is still persisting that he handed in his resignation. There's still no confirmation on whether that's true or not. I don't think it's Pioli's fault what's happened recently. He's got a lot of players there who aren't good enough. There's clearly a mental issue as well with some of the players, a bit like Roma have, where they get to a certain point in the season and then they just stumble. Yes, obviously the manager has to, encourage them and get them past those points, but there's players at the club that I don't think are good enough or shouldn't be there anyway for the direction the club's going in. He has basically one centre-back in Miranda at the moment who wasn't available for last night, and to be perfectly honest, losing at home to Napoli is not a huge shock considering the season they've had. So I think it'd be unfair for him to be moved on. I suspect he might be anyway in the summer. But yeah, the question of the transfer market, the thing within Italy, obviously, and similar in Spain and other countries that's different to the Premier League, is that the manager doesn't really pick the players. He will go to the director of football and the board and say, I need a centre-back and I need a wide midfielder or a centre midfielder, but he might suggest some names, but he won't have final say on it. That's all taken out of his hands. He just coaches the team. So I think he's a very good coach, Pioli, but he's in a very difficult situation there. And I think the thing is, even if he does manage to stay, the moment that Diego Simeone is available and leaves Atletico, whoever his Inter manager is getting the sack, and Simeone's coming straight in because they'll take him in an instant.
Yeah, agreed. And if not, the gentleman on Monday Night Football is available, Sir Alan of Pardew. Anyway, let's move on from that horrible image very quickly. This final question comes... Can you imagine that? Alan Pardew managing Inter Milan. Jesus. There is a thought. This final question I'll get... you can all have an answer on this one. Just keep it brief for me. This one comes from Gage Reynolds, who's recently sent us some lovely feedback via DM. Thank you, Gage. He's at LGageO. He wants to ask, in light of Bayern winning the Bundesliga again, how do you think this Bayern team would stack up in the Premier League? Ross, do you want to start us off with that one, given the fact you watch plenty in England?
Suspect they'd absolutely sweep it. The one that could come closer than this season would probably be Chelsea. Don't think Tottenham would be too far behind, but I still think Bayern would probably run away with it.
Yes, I concur. Joe, what do you reckon?
Yeah, same. I think they'd definitely be top 2, top 3. I think the performances against Arsenal proved that, didn't they? So they were far ahead of Arsenal in both games. So if that's a marker, then they probably are in the top 2 or 3. If not win it, they're very close.
Yeah, agreed. And John, you made the comment yesterday, West Brom at 8th, the Premier League is crap, I think was your quote. So I think based on that note,
I not to be insulting to West Brom, the quality of the Premier League isn't there. It's not. I'm not saying it's not an exciting league to watch, because obviously it's a lot more physical and it's fast paced, and the teams are quite aggressive, that kind of thing. But I think in terms of technical ability and the actual quality of the players, Bayern Munich would absolutely walk it. There'd be a couple of games where they might struggle a little bit. I think like a Liverpool team, because they press so high and Bayern Munich's defence is a little bit slow. You might get the odd slip up there, but yeah, I'm sure they'd walk away with the league.
Yeah, Yeah, 6 points guaranteed over Arsenal, of course.
But we could play them. We could play them 4 times in a season instead of. Oh well, no, not this year because we're not going to get Champions League. But yeah,
no, let's buy and fancy a trip to the Europa League. That's not going to happen. But yeah, be still, my beating heart. Right, good stuff. Well, that's all the questions done. So thank you very much for all of you that sent those in. Keep them coming as usual at the FH Podcast, or send us a DM, or if it's a really long one, send us an email, and we'll do our best to get to it ahead of next week's show. You can, of course, do that for the English Breakfast as well. So if there's something that catches your eye over the weekend, just ping us a message and we'll do our best to get it answered. Don't forget to visit our sponsors or our partners, whichever you want to call them, classicfootballshirts.co.uk. As usual, if you use the offer code CFSAW10, you get yourself 10% off. And as we keep saying, but nobody ever does, boo. But if you do buy anything, please give us a tweet and show us what you've bought and we will retweet it, of course. Final word has to go to Ross this week because Ross, thank you for coming on to give us your thoughts on Ryan Sessegnon. I just want to ask you how your European journey is going since you joined the podcast. Obviously, you've always been primarily our English go-to guy, but you're dabbling in European football, aren't you? What's capturing your imagination or has so far this season?
Liga has been by far and away the most interesting league I've watched.
My work here is done, people.
I have watched a little bit more Serie A this season. My intention was to watch the Swedish Allsvenskan League, which kicked off about 4 weeks ago now. But the times where they kick off in the UK are just all over the place, and I never seem to be able to sit down and watch it. So I've watched a couple of games there, not as many as I would have liked. Next season, I'm hoping to watch more Serie A and probably pick up a team to follow like I did with France this year. I picked up Lille for a few months just to get me into it. I suspect I'll probably do the same with Serie A next season. And I'm sorry, Joel, but Spain I can't get on with still. But I'm watching more European competitions for sure. I missed most of the Champions League and Europa League the past few years, but really enjoyed watching Dortmund and Monaco this year, and the Barcelona comeback against PSG. So certainly broadening my horizons.
There you go, Joel. Your mission over the summer is to find Ross a team that he can somehow get himself into.
I'd have a team. I'd have a team. I'd have Atletico Madrid because of the Southampton links. But it's Spain. Spanish league is no bueno.
There you go. They are, Joel. You've got your work cut out to try and convince Ross. So we'll have to try and get him. We'll have to try and get him into it. Perhaps you can follow Segunda Liga. Maybe that might be the way to go. But yes, I think it's, as you say, it's always fun to follow a new league. I'm very much enjoying MLS this season, as I usually do. But I'm trying to broaden my horizons even further. I've been watching Chile and Argentina recently, and that's kind of interesting me. And I've even, on behalf of Pete Kennelly, our regular Aussie listener, I'm watching a bit of A-League on a Saturday morning now when I wake up, which is quite fun. There's an absolutely crazy game. I think it's 5-3 the other week I watched the game. It was nuts. So there you go, people. If there's a league you fancy watching and giving us a report on, please do. So there we go. That's another podcast wrapped up then for another week. Only a few more weeks to go in all of our respective leagues that we're following. And plenty more things to be decided, titles to be won, relegations to be suffered, and drama to be witnessed. So keep it tuned to ourselves at the FH Podcast. We, of course, have a website, footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk. You can also follow us on YouTube and on SoundCloud, all the usual podcatchers out there. So do give us a rating, review, subscription, whatever it is, and keep that feedback coming. We appreciate it very much. So my thanks to my guests for this week, regular panelists Joel and Josh. Thank you very much, stars.
Cheers.
And thank you, Ross, for jumping in for our additional segment as well. Thank you very much.
Pleasure as ever.
And we will be back, of course, with the English Breakfast. I think Arsenal playing late again on Sunday this week, so I don't know if I'll be back this week or not. But one way or the other, our crew will be back with the English Breakfast on Sunday, and we'll be back with the main pod again this time next week. So until then, keep your bid strong and your glasses trendy. Enjoy your football, and we'll speak to you very soon.